Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah talk. This week we read Parshat Shoftim. We are deep in the heart of the book of Deuteronomy. Moses now giving different laws and ideas to the Jewish people that he wants them to be able to use when they cross into the promised land. Among these ideas that Moses is sharing with the people, in Deuteronomy 19, verse 11, he says, "V'chi ish sonel re'ehu," if a person hates his neighbor, ve'arav lo, and lies in wait for him, ve'kam alav, and ambushes him, v'hikahu nefesh v'met, and eventually rises up and kills him, ... Rashi has the whole thing is about cities of refuge, and but the series of ideas is interesting. If there's a man who hates his neighbor, who will lie in ambush for him and will rise against him and will ultimately kill him. Rashi says, he quoting a midrash from Sifrei Devarim, that it is through his hatred that he comes to such a point as to lie in wait for him. From here, the rabbis derive their statement: if a man transgresses a light command, he will, in the end, transgress a weighty command. Because he transgressed a light command, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart, that's from Leviticus, he will, in the end, come to the point of shedding blood. Now, this is an extreme example, obviously, but I think there's a certain brilliance to it. You know, we use this term dehumanization a lot. There's a lot of violence in society, terrible incidents, including this week, gun violence and wars and attacks and ambushes, and all kinds of terrible things done. And there's a dehumanization factor we talk about a lot. And I think that's true, and it's important that we talk about. I think what we don't talk about enough, perhaps, is the idea of humanization. What are we doing to make sure that we are seeing the humanity in the people around us? And I don't think this is necessarily something to talk about from far away, something to talk about only when violence is happening. I think there's, within our very societies, actually, we are starting to find more and more hatred. We might not describe it that way, but there is less tolerance for those who disagree with us. There is smear campaigns that happen online and that happen even in the news, even in reputable news outlets that seem to be based in nothing valid, but we're happy to get caught up in the hate and the dismissiveness of people. To believe the worst about others seems to be our delight. We love a good story of hate, and maybe that's always been true about people, but it seems like because there's so much information, so much misinformation out there, and we seem delighted to not see the humanity in others. And it doesn't have to be something extreme like a smear campaign. It could just simply be someone who disagrees with us, disagrees with our politics or ideas about a policy or what should be happening in our town or who should live here or. Our intolerance for disagreement, our unwillingness to see the humanity in those with whom we disagree. It is a major plague of our time. And we have divided ourselves. We each run to our corners. I only want to be with the people in my tribe, the people who feel the way I feel. I only want to be in my tribe, the people who feel the way I feel. And there are very, very few spaces for coming together with those we disagree with and not to talk about the things we disagree with, right? We're disagree about. We're so obsessed with our disagreements, with being right, and the fact that others are wrong, that if we're going to gather with them, we at least want the chance to convince them how right we are. Look, there needs to be spaces for that in the world. I get it. I'm not so naive. But does it have to be every space? In a sense, I think we are failing, maybe not going so far as to dehumanize people who are on the other side of things from us, but We're certainly not going far enough to humanize them. And that is what I think this pasuk is about, right? This verse is about. If there's a man who hates his neighbor and will ambush him, arising against him and smite him dead, where's that? That hatred is from this dehumanization. It's from never sitting across from someone and seeing their humanity. This is what I think is so important about sacred spaces like synagogues, and for our neighbors, churches or mosques or whatever it might be, temples, to sit with people and have sacred and meaningful experiences, ones that lift us all up, to sit across from them after a service and have a bagel and a schmear or whatever might be the fellowship fare at your local house of worship, to sit across from one and eat together, not to talk about the things that you disagree about, but maybe just talk about your families and the town you live in and what's going on in your lives and what you did this summer. Things that are humanizing, things that make us all the same, because that's most of the stuff. God forbid we should dehumanize and suffer hate that will lead us to do awful things by dehumanizing others. But please let us follow the other side of this mitzvah, which is to come together with those, even if we know we're different from them, even if we know we disagree with them, and simply share the things that we have in common. That is what community is based on. That's what neighborhoods are based on. That's how we keep from being in neighborhoods where people hate each other and lie in wait for each other. By seeing the humanity in each other. I think we could all use a big humanization campaign in our society and in our culture now. And hopefully, if we can get that to happen, then there'll be a lot less of the hatred. And ultimately, so too, a lot less of the violence. May that come speedily in our days. And I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.